All right, so for this episode of the podcast, I got Finley Funsten on, who is the co-owner, along with her husband, Landon, of the MADabolic Charlotte market. So 3 locations, but that I'm not there to talk about MADabolic necessarily. What I'm here to talk about is MADabolic's recent decision to outsource their nutritional solution. Now, Finley was the outsource originally. Finley created the MADabolic nutrition blueprint years ago, and that has been a mainstay. It was nothing more than a downloadable PDF with their belief in nutrition and guidance for clients. It wasn't paid for. It wasn't nutritional coaching. It was enough that anyone who wanted to follow it and adhere to it would see results. But MADabolic never really stepped outside of that because their core competency was group fitness. However, MADabolic has recently announced they have a software partner in Macrostax Team, and they are outsourcing the nutrition to Macrostax. And this is something that I did not see coming, especially from a brand like MADabolic. It's very unlike them to bring in these tech elements on a client-facing service like that. So again, I want you guys to check this out. And for any of you guys who have ever thought about bringing in nutritional services, but you don't want to have to do the education and get the certs and do the in-person sessions and, all to charge an extra $200 a month from somebody, I highly recommend watching how a national franchise like MADabolic is looking at leveraging their nutritional services via Macrostax Team. Enjoy. What is up, guys? It's Stu. It's another episode of the What the Fuck Gym Talk podcast, and I have on the podcast again Finley fucking Funsten of MADabolic Charlotte. And okay, so we're not here necessarily talking about MAD today, but what we are, I'm really curious on, Finn, is I've known you to really spearhead the nutritional efforts at MAD since the jump, but the nutritional blueprint and even your own personal content stuff. When you really came on scene with your content, it's always been very much geared towards that. And then I saw you guys partnering with Macrostax Team, and I was like, oh shit. I never saw that coming. If someone would have told me, like, give me your big predictions for 2024, it would not have been that MADabolic part. No, it was not it. So can you just bring everyone back to, one thing MADabolic does really well is it does one thing really, really, really well. But it's always kind of had this other nutrition, like the opportunity for people to learn more about nutrition or, do some nutritional coaching, that kind of stuff. Talk to me about the history of how nutrition as a service or even just like as a paradigm has existed in MADabolic prior.
Yeah. So you mentioned the nutrition blueprint, which was something I developed in, I want to say 2017 was when we released it at the end of the year. And if you're familiar with the MAD brand, we're a little bit different. You like to use the purple cow analogy. We're the purple cow. Our branding is different. Our messaging is different. The purpose and intentionality behind our strength-based program is different when stacked against other like standard boutique fitness options. And it's a breath of fresh air. And our nutrition approach kind of matches that. We're countercultural from the sense of like we're not doing the 6-week or 30-day lose as much fucking weight as fast as you can challenges that so many other gyms are known to push. We actually ask our people to, instead of thinking about working out to be able to eat more, like you actually have to earn the right to train by making sure you're eating enough. And that's a passion of mine in addition to fitness. On the nutrition side is kind of enabling that paradigm shift for the everyday client who has been drilled their whole life to move more and eat less, and who's maybe tried every single restrictive diet under the sun. And we are instead trying to unlearn these kind of borderline dangerous and unproductive habits of extreme restriction when it comes to nutrition. So we have always endorsed eating enough and making sure we're matching our nutrition and intake to be able to support our lifestyle and feel awesome and be able to actually build strength and not feel like shit all the time because we're chasing unsustainably low, target.
For anyone not familiar, could you just tell them what the nutritional blueprint was like? Yeah. I mean, what was the actual format it was delivered in?
Yeah. So with that, as we started kind of promoting education around that, we came up with the blueprint to um, basically formalize that ethos and give our clients something actionable to be able to employ as a value add. It was free. So the nutrition blueprint was a macro driven piece of nutritional guidance that had three different blueprints within: a blueprint for fat loss, a blueprint for maintenance, and a blueprint for muscle gain. Along with some ancillary supportive resources for people to put it into play. But it was free for download on our website. Anyone could download it, not just members. And lots of over the since 2017, tens of thousands of downloads on that blueprint, and many of our clients put into play. But even with so the blueprint was that resource to help people tie their nutrition to their strength training, and clients who actually put it into place saw great results with it. So each blueprint provided a caloric and protein, carb, fat range per kind of frame for male and for female based on frame and weight range. And it gave these targets for people to adhere to that they could very easily plot where they sat on that range, and boom, these are my targets and that's what I'm going to follow. So people who put that into play saw phenomenal success. It was simplified as much as we could simplify for the masses. And we were really, really proud of it. Really, really proud of it. So we enjoyed being able to provide that as an unpaid value. So we never really, and it was important. What was nice about it is it could kind of exist without drawing our primary focus away from who we really are, which is a strength brand. We're not a nutrition brand, we're a strength brand, but nutrition supports fitness, obviously. And we wanted to be able, if people were going to ingest nutrition content and guidance, we wanted it to be free of bullshit and gimmicks and fads, just like our training. So we never really entertained doing anything beyond that. We kind of talked about, well, what would next level nutrition services entail for the franchise? Is that something we even want to dance with? Because again, we don't want to be conflated with anything other than a strength gym and a brand rooted in fitness. So when Macrostax Team, I was actually on maternity leave and I got an email, like a cold sales email from Lindsay, or maybe it wasn't entirely cold. Like she had found Brandon on LinkedIn and Brandon connected the two of us. And I responded to her being like, frankly, I don't really want to waste your time. Lindsay, for those of you who don't know, she's the founder and CEO of Macrostax. I was like, I don't really want to waste your time. This is not something we're really all that interested in exploring because of our, commitment and fundamentals rooted in strength. Like we really don't want to have a much greater of a nutrition focus. Like we have this blueprint, here it is. You're welcome to look at it if you want.
She was probably so pumped to hear you, because that's like one of the problems they solve with Macrostax Team. Like gyms that don't listen, I got enough shit to fucking worry about, and we don't want to be known for this thing. And yeah. Okay, cool. So you set her up perfectly then for her to kind of jump in.
Yeah. So she came back, she was like, I totally hear you, and we actually can support all of that. Please let me I would love to show you the products just so you can see and you can ask questions and poke in. I'll give you a 30-day free trial just for you to test it out. And so, no harm there. So great. Let's do it. So I took that demo with her and was like, shit, this is actually super hands-off, arguably more hands-off than the blueprint was, in terms of them providing a chat line that our clients no longer have to come to me for nutrition questions, which, by the way, right, like system-wide, even members outside of Charlotte, I would get communications from about, XYZ question around the blueprint, which I was always happy to answer. But anyways, so Macrostax has this great feature called Stacks Chat, and within 24 hours of anyone submitting any question to that or needing extra support, one of their nutritionists is on the line responding directly to them. So you can kind of remove yourself from that equation if you want to. What was more important to me though, like, so the demo was super impressive. I immediately saw how you could easily generate revenue or use it as a value add to maybe a higher tier membership price and provide that for free within that membership structure. I could see that value, but what was important to me was like sticking to our ethos and making sure that like, okay, just for the sake of convenience and this revenue opportunity, I don't want to sacrifice I don't want to sacrifice our philosophies around nutrition and, sell out to any kind of restrictive approach or, this still needs to align with our philosophies. That's
Yeah,
really
on there
important.
real quick. Let me ask you this. How was Macrostax pitched to you? Was it pitched to you as, okay, Macrostax Team is a team of people like, about it's like a bunch of Finleys that can answer these questions and create these plans? Or did they really be like, this is what our algorithm or the software that we're utilizing AI on the back end is doing? How was it pitched to you?
I wish I could remember definitively, but I don't seem to recall it being pitched as like um it was honestly, I think she wisely kind of waited, like she received my feedback before I even saw a demo about like where we don't want to go with nutrition, and responded that way and was more so pitched as like I see your blueprint. I think you'll actually be very pleasantly surprised by our algorithms and the calculations that we provide, and how hands off this really will be. It's not going to put anyone in a position of having to actively manage a separate line of business. Like it can very easily just exist with your memberships without you needing to do a whole lot of
Yeah.
anything.
And because your recommendations were, I'm not gonna call them overly broad, but it's not like you weren't like keto, South Beach,
Correct.
carnivore, like you weren't in any of the little like super niched and nuanced camps. You were in like generally macros, right? These macros
Yeah.
should need to be somewhere, like,
Yep.
your caloric intake needs to be high enough to support rigorous exercise, but not high enough to support body fat.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're a human being, fucking crush a craft beer and some fucking cookies, right? Like at the same
Exactly.
time. It's
Yeah.
just it's cool because there's a lot of products out there that would not work with like their system, their algo or whatever to use is more like I just had one brand on, and you actually picked which one of these you were in. If you were like,
Yeah.
I'm in keto, I'm in carnivore, I'm in this, and then it
Right.
kicked you into that camp. I just found it was really interesting as I dug into Macrostax Team, and I'm very familiar with your blueprint. You guys very graciously brought copies of that thing to the Self-Made Summit in 2019 and
Yeah.
handed that shit out to gym owners, just like, yeah, this is what we do. It's
Yeah.
available for
Yeah.
download. You can technically steal it if you want. Good fucking luck, like
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I thought the pairing made a ton of sense as I dug into it more.
Yeah. So exactly. So that was important to me, was making sure that their macro guidance and their philosophies aligned with ours. Because we've been like so loud, some might say too loud, about like planting our flag around what we believe in and what we believe is right, that I didn't want to risk jeopardizing that. So I got into the app. The back end is beautiful how simple it is to manage as an owner or a manager, whoever's managing um, that revenue stream. But the app itself, the user side, like the calculation that they use to calculate calories and macros was almost, if not identical, to what I put in place to calculate the macro and calorie targets for the blueprint. So there was alignment there. And then I started going through their resources and the help center that explains the why behind everything they do, which includes articles about like, question, can I really see results while eating this much? And I was like, oh shit, I have this conversation all the time. Um, and it was just like fucking rammed with how to's and tips and like resources to make people successful, that it basically took what we were trying to accomplish with the blueprint, which we accomplished with some people, but again, not to oversimplify, but the blueprint was a PDF download, which then you had to go down, like get a macro tracking app and kind of transfer what you were learning from the blueprint into that tracking app. Like doing it all in one place, I think, removed more barriers for members to be able to actually put these strategies in place for themselves. Like we got great feedback on the blueprint, and then some of the feedback from from many members was like, it's great that it's there, but like I don't really know where to start. Like it's still kind of a lot to look at. This actually like puts something immediately in their hands to like take action with. So it's basically like allowed us to graduate from the blueprint into a digitized version of it.
Let's talk the business. Let's talk the business side of this. So, okay.
Yeah.
So
yep.
Macrostax get to you and you look at it and you're like, okay, I can get behind Macrostax Team, how they look at nutrition. It's similar to ours, but there still needs to be a business. There's some numbers about it. So do you know, like, I know like they're offering a 30-day trial for anyone to try it, but at the same time, like, what does that look like from it costs us X and then we have to upcharge Y?
Sure. So without getting too deep into the specifics of like what we are paying them.
Sure.
It costs us, the software pays for itself if we have 6 active members a month using it.
Oh, awesome.
Paying for it.
Okay.
Which is nothing. And even if we only had 6 people, I mean, I still see it as a value add. Like there's revenue opportunity for sure, but it's not going to like dramatically boost our margins, but it is.
Yeah. Mad HQ, like Rick wasn't good. I wanted a new Learjet. Let's get Macrostax Team going. Right. We're not like, this isn't going to be, it's not even going to touch what we do in membership. Membership is still our thing. It's just a value add, but it's going from like a PDF download that we had before to something way better UX. And if it does grow over time, cool.
Great.
There's some benefit there financially. But I tell people, like, when your core thing is memberships, like subscription-based memberships, until you have done that incredibly well for 7 to 10 plus years, like, don't add another vertical in there. And if you do, it's just ancillary. It's just like, it's icing on the cake at that point. But a lot of gyms come in where like that revenue's not high enough. Like, okay, what the fuck do I do? Instead of figuring out how to fix their core thing, they go and like, I'm going to do this thing and hopefully it's going to at least meet or exceed what I'm doing. I love that you guys looked at it as not, it's not supposed to match or like be our other primary revenue stream. It's just supposed to hopefully help some people and it'll pay for itself plus.
Help some people out. And also like for people who do actually use it and adhere to it, guess what? They're seeing results and then their bodies look different and then they're connecting those results to our product, like Macrostax, but also probably primarily the workout. You know what I mean? So it's a good retention tool as well. So practically the way we put it in play, there a few ways you could cut the pie, cut the cake, whatever that analogy is. But one way you could do it that we've considered, but that's not what we're doing, is have come up onto the absolute maximum threshold of a membership price that you could charge, or maybe just above it, and include this as a addition. Why we don't choose to do that right now, include that as a part of the membership price. Why we choose not to do that, at least right now, is I worry that there is some risk there of like, there's not a whole lot of skin in the game. Like if they're not actively paying for this, I wonder what usage looks like. Whereas when we offer a steeply discounted rate on it, like I think we charge $14.99 a month for it, there's some skin in the game and they know that they're paying for it, so they're likely to use it. And then when they use it, they see results, which provides motivation to continue to use it. So that's how we launched it. You can either pay for it monthly or you can pay upfront for the year and get a 20% discount on that total, A lot of people took us up on that, pay for the whole year, when we launched it, which was great because then the whole year of the software was paid for, right out of the hop.
Let me ask you this. So for people not familiar, Macrostax has a B2C, which is what I believe Lindsay rolled it out originally. It's obviously B2C. Yeah. Anyone can go in the App Store and download this. Now, Macrostax Team is B2B, and it comes with, this other support. It's definitely designed for gyms and studios to grow the revenue and create a better client experience. So there's other things involved in this than you would get in the B2C. Did you guys have anybody like, oh, I already have this app or I'm already using it, or were you guys bringing brand awareness to the platform, which also obviously benefits this partnership for Macrostax?
I'm not sure I encountered anyone who had used it before. Maybe they had, but I didn't know about it. But we're also offering I think it's like $29.99 for people to just go into the App Store and buy it. So we're incentivizing using it through us because it's so much cheaper per month.
Sure. Absolutely. So keep going with the rollout, because I want to keep hearing about this rollout, because I know you guys are super meticulous about anytime you're making a change, because the one thing is you guys have just consistently been what you've been. How long did it take for you guys as an organization to be like, okay, we're rolling out that we're doing this app thing. This is different than anything we've done before. It has to be the language, how we roll it out, blah, blah. Walk me through like what that sounded and looked like in the inner offices at MADabolic HQ.
Yeah. So we put together a lot of educational content and like onboarding content for franchisees. Like we made sure all of that stuff was in place before we kind of rolled it out. And then it was about a 30-day runway. Once we were like, you guys can start implementing it as soon as 30 days from now or later if you want to, but in 30 days, you guys can unveil this. And here are the learning paths on how you're going to set this up, how you invite your members. Here are the FAQs and every possible question or troubleshooting matter you might run into with them. Like we really did front load them with, how to get it going. And then on the client facing side, we also provided all franchisees with the same language and messaging and content, emails, of blog posts, social media content to tease it out and educate on the product. What worked in our favor was nutrition. Like talking about nutrition wasn't entirely new. Like everyone was already kind of familiar with the blueprint. So framing it as, Nutrition Blueprint 2.0 powered by Macrostax. Now we're putting this experience in your phone for a much easier and swifter user experience. But I'd say it took about 30 days, and that was important. Like we didn't want to just hit go. We wanted to tease it out and promote it and create interest. And so we generated, pre-sign up lists, reserve your spot today so that you get access on day one that we launch it. And that alone generated a good portion of our current user base for Macrostax.
So how does this work with the FDD? So you guys, is this required by franchisees now, like to participate and to utilize this in the service offering?
Yes. But for new franchisees, we don't require, they are eventually required to run it, but not until they've hit 100 members.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Because we want them to have a membership base to actually sell it to instead of forcing them to pay a software fee without enough people to purchase it. Because as much as I wish there was 100% adoption, there isn't, right? It's, depending on the location, like 10 to 30% adoption. So we need them to build up enough of a user base to actually sell it. But yes, it is now required for new locations to sign up for. At least that's where it stood 2 months ago. I am no longer on the corporate team as I'm focusing, fully on Charlotte and my nutrition business, Mad Charlotte and my nutrition business. But I believe that is still the case. For new locations.
That was one of the next questions I had, was the adoption, the compliance, utilization rate of this. So I generally see, I said, a good gym, if you bring in a nutritional type service or any auxiliary service, if you hit 20%, pat yourself on the back, not bad, you're doing pretty well. That's why when when people think about this, like, okay, I'm doing $50,000 a month. And let's say worst case scenario, I get 10% of my gym. So let's say $50,000 a month and I have 300 members. So I'm going to get 30 people times my fucking, whatever the price of my nutritional coaching or whatever it is. You'd have to be selling I heard a legit registered dietitian here in Charlotte with Matt Dengler of RXRD when I was training for the marathon. Like Matt charges a legit $400+ a month kind of like thing for it to have these meetings with you. And you can't do that in the gym. It's like, is that how really, like, are you really going to sell the $200 a month boutique gym membership plus this 400 to 5, which you really need to have in order for it to significantly tip the scales from a revenue perspective. So I'm glad to see you guys are seeing that too, like 10 to 30%.
Yeah. And obviously it's repeat. Like the more you talk about it, the better adoption is.
Yeah.
And talking, incorporating that into new member conversations or lead conversations is important too. So something that we've started doing, and I'll be able to report back on its effectiveness maybe in like 30 to 60 days, but we now provide all new members 30 days, or no, maybe it's 14 days free, 2 weeks free of Macrostax. So that, and it's like, if you do not want to actually purchase this, like if you start using it and don't like it or don't want to use it, let us know before day 14, because then you'll start getting billed for it. So I'll be interested to see myself how that impacts our adoption.
Do you think there's is there an opportunity with stuff like this? So it's like whenever you're going to have some kind of auxiliary service or feature or whatever it may be, to increase that utilization rate or that adoption rate, you got to, take a look at what you're talking about on social media, which is probably the group classes, the fitness to whatever, and you got to start bringing that in as well. Like, how do you think, because you think of storytelling with social media very similar to how I do. How do you start storytelling this app and the impact it's having on someone going to MADabolic 4 days a week, pursuing a certain goal?
Yeah, I think you have to ask for those stories. Like you have to ask for feedback and testimonials from your members who are using it and seeing good success with it. So I think there's that at the beginning, like before you really have those use cases to share. I think it's a lot of touring the app and showing exactly how it works and why it's different from MyFitnessPal, and running nutrition Q&As that plug Macrostax. And I did a system-wide webinar about nutrition. It was a little like framed as a generic, like how to unfuck your diet and get started macro tracking, weaving in Macrostax all over that to keep it top of mind. And then once you have the use cases in place and people have been putting it to use and seeing results, I think you just have to be forthcoming and just asking for those testimonials.
Yeah. My guess is there's a privacy policy that would forbade this, but you guys don't have with Macrostax Team, like on your end, you guys don't have like photos, a dashboard that shows like how much, like what, like these are the average macro profile. Like can you see at an aggregate your gym? Okay, cool. Talk to me about that.
It's cool. Yeah, you can see. So looking at it, you can see there's a dashboard as soon as you log in that shows you like who's on what plan, like who's in fat loss, who's in maintenance, who's in muscle gain. You can see adoption, like how closely people are adhering. You can see body fat changes, weight changes. So yeah, there's a pretty, it's a useful dashboard to see how many people are in there. It won't surprise you to learn that 64% of that pie chart are in the fat loss column.
Okay. When you guys, I had when I had Urban and CrossFit South End, I had MindBody and you guys had MindBody, and you were the first local gym at the time that had paid for the upgrade for the custom app, like where your branding, your colors, your fonts. And I remember that was like my trigger for me to be like, yep, I need to probably do this too, because it looks that much better. Talk to me about the customization or the white labeling of the app from in terms like, so again, you want things to feel like it's a MADabolic product. It's being powered by Macrostax teams.
Yes.
So how are you guys able to keep the branding cohesion consistent on that app?
So we actually don't, like you can use your logo. We can put our logo into it. So when they log in, it's, MADabolic Charlotte. We don't have the I'm pretty sure you can white label it for an upcharge, but we actually don't have the white labeled version.
Got it.
We use the basic Macrostax Team. We upload our logo, and then it's franchisee specific. So like I can't put messaging in the portal for all locations, but like in Charlotte, I swap out, like you have control over home screen content, links in the menu screen. So I'll swap out like metabolic messaging in that home screen, whether that's like a tip, what our stance on cheat days is, a link to a great nutrition blog that we really like from our website. So there are ways to still direct the user to your brand, even without the white label version.
When you've got a very established, so for everyone's reference point, the market of Charlotte, we have 3 metabolics in Charlotte that Finley and her husband landed on. The 2 legacy locations are over 400 each membership wise.
Yeah, we're now at about 750 members total across all 3. We actually just hit 200 in Noda, which is our youngest location, which we opened in November of last year.
Congrats. Fuck yeah.
Thank you.
With that, when you rolled it out here, obviously I'm assuming Charlotte was the testing grounds as you guys rolled this out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was the initial adoption more, less, or exactly what you expected?
It was kind of on par with what we expected. Yeah. And that was because I expected a high adoption rate. I expected because I'm here, so there's just naturally more like conversation around nutrition locally, with that being a passion of mine. So I was expecting a higher adoption in Charlotte.
And here's the one thing I'll say is I have gym owners who have either started their own nutritional coaching service in-house, or maybe they've done an app or whatever, and they're like, the adoption wasn't high. And I'm like, let me ask you something. In the past, however many years, if I talk to your clients and say, so what all have you learned about nutrition from coach so-and-so or gym owner so-and-so? If the client doesn't have a lot to say, then they don't think of you as an SME or an authority on that. And the one thing I'll say about Finn, not only is you captured, like, you are the SME of nutrition hyper locally within the Charlotte market, but some of the things you've done that I love, and I want you to talk about this because I think people will fucking love this, like the adoption of like the candy troughs that you guys have at the front desk. And like, so for people who don't know what that is, I mean, this just shows how much your influence and how you know the metabolic customers so fucking well that you can come up with this idea that I bet you if I ran it by a bunch of people, other industry or other gyms and what, they're like, that doesn't sound like that's on brand or that's going to work. It fucks at Metabolic. Like, it does so well. It's so on brand. Will you explain to everyone what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah. I have to say I think that's one of my, whenever I walk into another Metabolic location in the country, like I was in Denver a couple months ago and they had, had the candy store set up, and I was there with my sister and I was like, I think this is maybe the proudest thing I've ever brought into the brand. So in January it was January 2 years ago, I wanted to do something that was different than the standard, like, it's January, what's your resolution? Let's all jump into a starve yourself skinny challenge. I wanted to like stand out. And it was around the same time that Brandon and I were kind of like jamming on the concept of talk triggers and things that we do in our brand that like cause people to like create chatter, like, oh my God, what are they doing? It's different. Like the tattoos at our annual party, that's a talk trigger, right? It gets people talking about our brand. So I thought, like, well, all these other gyms are giving their clients like, yes, you can't eat these foods. This is all you can eat during this challenge. Like, I want to say fuck you and put candy right in our lobby. But with a scientific purpose. So we put not just any candy, specifically gummy candy, gummy bears, Sour Patch Kids, basically anything that was like high glucose, low fat. And there was an educational flyer with it that people actually read, and that, I went on Instagram and videoed myself explaining the science behind preloading your strength training session with glucose and the value of ingesting a fast-acting carb source that your body doesn't need to break down in order to utilize right before your workout or right after your workout, and the value of glucose with a fast-acting protein source like a scoop of our SFH whey protein for kickstarting that recovery and repair process. So there was still function and education behind the candy, but it was different. It was something that people would walk in and be like, tell me about this. And it turned into this talk trigger, and it ended up just be like, at the time we intended it just to be a fun January like campaign. And when we took it away by March, I mean, members were like borderline rioting that they didn't have their, 9 little pieces of mini Swedish fish to smash right before their workout. So we were like, fuck it, we're going to bring it back. And it became this permanent fixture in our lobbies. And then replicating that across all locations was really simple because the collateral was already there. The education was already there. The educational video that people could use to explain it was already there. So it wasn't, the value of glucose before a workout isn't specific to MADabolic Charlotte. It can work anywhere in any MADabolic location. So they were any location that wants it. It's not required, but most have it in place. And it's really easy to implement in their doors, and it becomes like this fun thing that we do that's different.
For everyone listening, the power here, if you think about the branding perspective, you have two options. Someone's going to come in and they're going to see it, and they're a client with a higher training age and a training IQ, and they're like, oh, I get it. Like, I'm about to work out. Let me get some fast-acting carbs. I just got done with the workout. Let me get a little insulin spike with some carbs so then I could take with my protein, my BCAA. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that person gets it. Then there's the other person doesn't get it. Guess what happens when you don't get it? You ask the question. And the best thing in the world of nutrition is when someone actively actually asks you the question, because otherwise, I think what a lot of the gym owners do, we just kind of yammer in a newsletter or a podcast or a video, and like, no one asked you, asshole. Like, I wasn't asking that question, right? But like, someone's like, what's with the green gummy worms? Right? What's with the green sour gummy worms? And you're like, oh, I'm glad that you asked, right? Like, and now your staff that has been trained are able to see this. And like she said, just like Jay Barron Talk Triggers, it's different. And that's why I refer to you guys as a purple cow. You guys just do shit like having candy at the front desk that is just different. Then it allows them like, oh, and they will leave that class. And again, the coaching could be on point. Community was dope and encouraging. The programming was awesome, a la Kirk. But the thing they'll talk about when they go home and the husband's like, hey, honey, how was that new gym you tried out? MADabolic, whatever the fuck it's called. And she's like, oh, yeah, it was great. But dude, they got gummy bears at the front desk when I left, the green ones that I love. And they actually explain why it's cool for me to have some of these post or pre-workout. It just creates that opportunity for the customer, the prospect, whatever, to inquire, which with branding, that's the thing you want them to do. You want them to see your thing and ask more about it or be more interested in what's behind the curtain of it. And I just love that. I think you guys have nailed that part.
Yeah, thanks. It's really fun. It's fun to see people like latch onto it, not just clients, but other locations like buying into it and believing in it. And
so you and me are obviously raving about Macrostax Team. We like it. I want you to be hypercritical about it. And this is one thing, Finn, if I've known you long enough, you can be very hypercritical on pretty much everything. And so what would you say if Lindsay, we're sitting here right now, we're having like a powwow on this, what are the things you look at that app and the things and like, these are the things I'd love to see on their product roadmap down the line. And I know her husband, Casey, and the products he's made with Fitbod and Coach RX and True Coach, and they are incredible at like listening to the customer base, hearing their feedback, and then implementing it. And Lindsay's no different with Macrostax. So I'm just curious, like, what is it you would like to see either different or improved, or thoughts that you have?
Yeah, absolutely love it. If there were two things that I would love to see on the product roadmap, one is the ability to schedule out terminations, like people who maybe churn off of it. Because right now it's managed through MindBody. And I actually just saw that they released a partnership with Mariana Tech that I think makes it all in one place for Mariana Tech users, which is great. We're not on Mariana Tech, so we don't have that luxury. But being able to manage all of the memberships, the Macrostax memberships in Macrostax would be nice. So that we don't risk the someone asked to stop paying and then you issue that termination in MindBody and then also in Macrostax, or if someone at the front end of the month is like, hey, I don't want to renew this at the end of the month, like being able to schedule that out would be kind of nice. And then the ability to message people in groups or like have some kind of cohort where you can communicate with groups of Macrostax users at once in messaging. And I also say that, so I don't know if you know this, and maybe it's worth mentioning, maybe it's not. I say that I'm really not at all that critical of this software. I love it so much that I completely ditched my old software that I use for my personal nutrition coaching business and now run my nutrition coaching business separate from MAD through my own Macrostax Team site.
Oh, dope. Very cool.
So I love it. Like that's how much I love it. I transitioned my entire client load over to it. It's so awesome.
I'm sure someone's going to ask that. They're thinking this like, oh shit, she also, she owns 3 MADabolic locations, but she also has this other thing, which I'm assuming probably feels like the side hustle to the MADabolic thing. Even like, I'm not sure which one. Yeah.
Now I would say it does feel a bit more 50-50 now that I don't have 3 balls in the air between HQ, Charlotte, and my nutrition brand. Yep. So I do feel like I'm able to split my attention a little more evenly between the two. What's nice about Charlotte too is like Landon is primary operator for Charlotte and is a machine. So it makes it a little easier for me to have my eye on both.
What tips, because I know that I run into owners who have an idea, right? Because somewhat like I did. Like I was end of 2014, 2015 when I recorded my first WTF video, right? And that started becoming a thing while I still had the gym. What advice do you have to an owner who has another skill set and maybe it's currently a side hustle or something they're thinking of starting? What's the go, no go? Like, you should do this if the business is blank, or like, do you have any thoughts around what advice if someone's like, I'm thinking of doing another little side thing while I still have my gym?
I think it depends on the team you have and the support you have. Like, I couldn't do this nutrition side business if I were a one-woman show running MAD by myself without amazing managers in place. Like, there needs to be full-time attention on the primary business. I'm also not sure I'd ever be all that interested in integrating my one-on-one work into MAD, because similar to what I covered at the beginning on like our hesitations corporately about getting into a nutrition line, is I don't want that to detract from our primary mission of like strength. And I like being really, as a business, I like being really fucking good at that one thing. I don't want us to try and do too much. I think we would risk like muddying our reputation and like taking our attention off of what makes us unique and so great. So I don't want to say my tip would be like, don't do it. Like I'm doing it separately, but it's separate, and I'll probably forever keep it that way.
All good. Finn, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited again. If there's a testament to Macrostax Team, it's definitely you adopting it. And because I know if you wouldn't have signed off on this, like it was ultimately going to be like, hey, does Finn think this is going to do us justice or not? It would have never even made it to Brandon and Rick and Kirk. It would never even gotten up there. So, when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, okay. So if Finn's given a pass and mark and she's co-signing on it, this is definitely something I think any gym owner can consider and go do the 30-day free trial, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I would strongly recommend it. Anyone can do a 30-day free trial, even if it's just you fucking around in the app and you decide it's for you or not for you. Like, it's so worth your time looking into it. It is awesome. It is an awesome support source for our members.
Very cool. If anyone has questions, they want to kick over to you, they've got whatever it may be. What's the best way someone can get in contact with you?
Find me over on my Instagram channel, which is just my name, @Finley Funsten.
Deal. I will throw that in the show notes, kids. Finn, thank you so much. I will be seeing you here in October at the franchise conference, and
looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll have a good time. All right, boss. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Bye.